relating directly in from last episode, you see, I've actually refined the screen in how it functions. So instead of being based on lamps this time, it's based on pistons and wool. And as you can see, this is actually a pretty good solution. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a way to actually compress it vertically so that it's still not 2 blocks tall and 1 block wide, strangely. And over here I actually designed a model, a screen, a prototype to test how the screen space will work. And so the screen will be broken up into segments, I think. Yes, 4 blocks tall and 2 blocks wide, which is actually 2 by 2 pixels because of the pixels being too tall and 1 wide. And so that way we can have a digital screen, and the way it would work is in memory. Each one of these would be 1/2 byte, which is 4 bits, which is 1 register in this 4-bit machine. And collectively, this screen is 5 by 4 digits of binary coded hexadecimal, which is the system that I use for numeric things, which, if you're not aware, is just grouping the binary into what's a good example? Grouping the binary into 4-bit chunks, and each one of those is a digit in hexadecimal. Only in this model it's square instead of vertical, and the least significant bit is this one, and then the next significant one is, I don't remember, I think it's this one, and then this one right here, and then this one. And so this is the significance map. Although because it's so square and non-linear, it's hard to remember which bit is which is why I really don't like that system, and I stopped using it a long time ago. But in this case it might actually be necessary, although I hope it's not. That would be horrible. But that's the screen. I've actually designed this thing here, which is a compromise between sort of speed and compression. And so this top one here toggles both of these, and then this one bottom one here toggles only one of them. And so you can actually, you can see how that works. It's not great. And it requires more complicated controlling in order to handle how it works. And it doesn't display as quickly, and it also takes longer to get the signal in. Over here, this is what I've done to the RAM stack here. I shouldn't call it a stack because that's actually a memory model. The RAM bank. In this model, it is 8 half bytes of 4 bits each. That's what a half byte is, or what I have defined it as being. And the way this one works is, this is the data input bus, and this is the update bus. And what that does is, it pushes these blocks across the back of the piston to update them using this piston, and then these pistons automatically push back whenever they can, as I've instructed them to. And this is actually probably the fastest and most compact and most reliable memory I've ever made. And with this being only 8 half bytes, I can actually extend that to 8 full bytes, 8 bits each, and then make a bank of probably 16 to 32 bytes, which could be a pretty good register bank, but I don't think that's big enough for something like a cache or an actual RAM bank. Officially, RAM is supposed to be big enough to store whole programs in. And what program do you know that's only 8 instructions long? Probably not a very good one. Typically, I think 512 bytes is considered the minimum necessary for anything serious, and this is only 8 bytes, so yeah, you're going to be doing very primitive things with this, unless you extend it. And if you extend it, it's going to be huge, and that means probably buses everywhere, and that's going to include latency, which is going to slow down the machine. And so it's a constant battle between size and speed. Size in terms of, I think, memory mostly, but also physical size. Just look at that screen over there. This one holds exactly as many characters as that screen, only this is supposed to be used for alphabetical, not just the very primitive digital. This one can hold exactly 2 by 9 characters, 2 tall and 9 wide. How many how many words do you know that's longer than 9 letters? A lot of them. And how many times have you thought, no, I only want to look at 2 very small words at a time, one above the other. Try reading a book that way. And so that's also not great. And look at how big it is still. Over here I've actually gotten work started on the ALU of the processor. This is a bank of 4 AND gates, and this is 2 XOR gates that I've started on. I thought I could put 4 XOR gates and 4 AND gates next to each other to calculate some things in parallel, and then send those forward. I've actually considered not including arithmetic in the ALU and just having it be purely logical functions, like bit shifting, and or XOR, NAND, NOR, XNOR, NOT, things like that, and also checking for things like 0 and negative. But of course, even though that would really help with size and general speed of everything that's not arithmetic, it would slow down arithmetic by, I think, 3 times. It'll make it probably 3 times as slow, or a third the speed. I mean, a third as fast. Probably worse, actually. What else? I think that's everything I've done so far. I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah, I probably should only start with logical functions and then moved into arithmetic, because probably best to start simple with this in any case. And even now you can see there's a small complication. I need to route this, actually, no, it's a better example here. Need to route this around to both of these. But then I also need to get this and this connected, which, as you can see, there's going to be a blockage here, which we can fix with this. But then, what about this one? Oh, that needs to connect to here. And now you can see a problem is arising. Busing. And I'm pretty sure I'm not going to do it like this. I'm going to use some kind of other solution. And I'm probably also not going to put the ALU right here specifically. Probably going to put it closer to the registers here. Or maybe over here to the side, to form kind of a unidirectional ring of data flow, so that the ALU would have the accumulator, which would feed into the registers, which would go back into the ALU. These things. But keep in mind, this is actually the most optimized I've ever had this be. That's the most compact logic gates I've ever made. That's the most compact RAM I've ever made, in Redstone, that is. And so, if ever I was to make a fully complete good processor in Redstone, now would be the time. Which, funny thing you should probably know about, I've never actually made a complete Redstone processor before, because it's so hard to do. Not hard in terms of logic and figuring out the sort of abstract concepts, but hard in the terms of getting the redstone to do what you want it to, which is actually a whole puzzle in itself. As you can see, this is not normal. This took a lot of thought to get working. Just look at how carefully I had to plan all of this out. And in the end, I've simplified it down to only a couple components per gate, which is really good. A lot better than it used to be. Actually, I see a problem right here arising. I think I know how to fix that, though. Like this. There. And then that can all be compressed into composite lines as well as the inputs later. Also, an interesting thing over here, the input needs to come in uncompressed form because they all need to go into separate areas, as you can see. But then later on, I can compress it into composite form like this. There, and that's how it would actually flow normally throughout the processor. Having it be uncompressed, for every tile it's uncompressed, it's going to be really inefficient. Oh yeah, and normally this is how big a bus would have been in one of my old processors if I would have made one. But now with it being half the size, I can literally fit twice the information into the same space. And if this processor does actually work finally, it's going to be legendary, because I'm planning on having this be fully kitted out with all of the best technology and all of the best systems. It's going to have a system where, or I plan on having a system where, the initialization function of the processor loads the first chunk of memory from the hard drive into the registers for execution. And so it would have like a boot sector like a normal computer. And then I would also include a sort of command line input in firmware so that you can actually interface with the computer before loading any software onto it officially, which would make it so that it's not just a brick if you don't have any software in it, which would normally be the case. I think even with modern computers, if you don't have a bootable operating system, that computer is useless until you get one, which I don't want to be the case. I want a way for you to actually program an operating system in the computer with it running nothing but the bare metal and the firmware. What else? Oh yeah, the hard drive. The hard drive is going to be one of the hardest parts since it needs to be high capacity, but also as fast as possible, because if we want the computer to run at more than 1 clock cycle per hour instead of 1,000 clock cycles per second. Imagine having a Redstone computer that ran at kilohertz. That would be revolutionary, when in reality normal computers run at gigahertz now. I remember when computers normally ran at megahertz. That was revolutionary at the time. You could finally load images faster than what? Uh, and 90 pixels by 90 pixels per hour. But I think this is enough about Redstone for right now. I can feel my vocal cords getting